So the question children are asked most often is, what do you want to do when you grow up, right? And I've had the privilege to hear some wonderful answers. I've heard them say doctor because they want to help everyone that needs it. That's a brilliant answer. I've heard them say, I want to be a scientist to make something everyone can benefit from. That too is a wonderful answer. I've heard some of them say artist because they want to draw their vision and show it to the rest of the world. And that too is a brilliant answer. And in this seemingly perfect setting, there's still one problem. You see, children with their innocent curiosity that is not tainted by the society yet, do not see the question as what do you want to do when you grow up as something which means how do you want to earn a living. Instead, they see the question as how would you like to change the world if you have been given the opportunity. The problem in this setting is not the children, it's not their answers, it's not the reasoning they give, but something much simpler. Here, it's the question itself. What do you want to do when you grow up? When? Now that single word puts a restriction on time before they can create an impact out there in the real world. But why do we do that? We have a world full of opportunities and challenges. Yet for some reason we stop these kids, teenagers, to go out there and make a difference today. The reason for that is because we do the same things for ourselves in our lives. Ask yourself for a moment, didn't you have that one brilliant idea? Maybe it was for a book, maybe for a patent, maybe it was just a personal goal you had. You had that at the beginning of the pandemic, yet for some reason it's at the back of your head right now and you haven't started working towards it even now. Why is that? Is it laziness, maybe, for some of you? You think that? Procrastination? Well, it's something much simpler, and it's just that after a point of time, we don't feel the need to change the world around us. We take the general norm as it is, we take the colloquy as it is, and we accept whatever is provided to us. Why is that? So I tried to look into it a lot, and I found out that each and every one of us go through that one traumatic incident that changes things for us, that changes the world around us, that changes things for us. Maybe some of you are going through it right now. See, for me, it happened on my 13th birthday. I clearly remember this. So I woke up and everything around me seemed really different. You know what happened? I woke up that day to realize that I had become a teenager. Right? Because the thing is that when you talk about teenagers, there are so many changes going on. So I introspected a little bit. What was different about me as a teenager? Why was I different from a day earlier? And I found out that I had developed something truly amazing. It was a fire burning within me that was telling me not to accept things the way they were, not to accept the status quo, not to accept the general norm. And it wasn't any kind of fire. It was one with a very specific phenomenon. I'm not sure if you've heard about this. This is not something you see very often, but it's called rebellion. Right? Because the word we associate with most often with teenagers is rebellion. To any teenager, you ask a question, you do something, you show them how to do something. Whatever you do, it's not good enough, is it? We always want to add our element to it. We always want to change it a little bit. We're never happy about what you do. We always want to change that because we can never accept the status quo. And I think that is how I realized that I had the development of an inability to accept the status quo. Can you see that? It's too long and complicated. So I thought it's better if I can just call it disco. So I had developed a disco as a teenager, and I realized that it is something that's truly phenomenal. Because here's the idea. If you give anything to a teenager and they reject that idea and make a new one, then if you give them a colloquy, or like if you give them something that's part of the colloquy, or if you give them the general norm, they'll change that too, right? And more often than not in our society, that is the problem in itself. The norm is the problem. So that solves everything, right? You take all the problems in the world, you give it to teenagers, they're going to solve it for you, and there, you're all happy. I can really sense the tension among all the adults in the room that, is he serious about what he's talking? But that's true. You can actually do that. But just one exception. There's one small problem we need to address. And that's something I'd like to address using PNC. I'm sure most of you have heard about PNC, right? So it's not permutation and combination for those of you mumbling that. You see what happens is when you're going about advanced ideas, the same words mean a lot of different things. So when you go higher up, you start developing the same terms, you make it more complicated. So PNC is much more complicated and it's something I've been working on for some time. Don't worry, I'll explain it to you. You see, PNC stands for pastries and cakes. Yeah, but what is pastries and cakes and what does it have to do with the problems we're discussing today? What is pastries and cakes? Well, a good way to understand pastries and cakes is using this thought experiment conducted by the University of Pennsylvania, and it's also something which is referred by Abhijit Banerjee in his book, Poor Economics. I would be showing you two posters. You can go through them, and you have the choice of donating money to at least one of them. Actually, just one of them, and you need to choose which one. So here's the first one. Food shortages in Malawi are happening. There are 3 million people right now in Malawi, children that are hungry. You have a choice of donating your money to this one or the second one. Here we talk about something much different. Here we talk about a young boy called Roka, a 7-year-old from Mali. He needs food way below UN defined nutrition level. Serious hunger, closing towards starvation, no healthcare facilities, no education. If you make a donation today, we are going to work with him, his family and his community in order to get these facilities to children like him. Think about it. You have a choice to make here. It's either the first poster or the second one. And what's really sad is that this is just one part of Africa. I haven't even started talking about India or the Middle East or rest of Africa or the Latin America. There are way too many problems in the world to solve. But now if I ask all of you sitting in the audience today or watching this wherever you are, this question, raise your hand right now if you want to vote for the first one. Now raise your hand if your vote is for the second poster. Look around yourself. Most of you voted for the second poster simply because it seems more achievable, right? You're talking about a smaller problem and that perfectly defines cakes and pastries. The first poster is a perfect example of a cake. It's big, it has way too many layers to it, it's way too complicated, and trust me, people have tried, but no one can finish a cake all by themselves. The second poster, on the other hand, is a perfect example of a pastry. It's small, graspable, it seems achievable, and you feel that if you put your effort towards that, you can solve that problem. And that's why teenagers need to take more of these pastries and fewer of those cakes and start working on problems around us. But here's how, this is all talking about the different ways in which we can approach problems and how to do it. But the question is, when we talk about actually making a difference in society, how would we do so? Like, is there a method? Is there a model? Well, there's no defined model on how you can go about this. But yes, most of the successful organizations do show a pattern. And that pattern is what I like to call the 3 Ps of impact. 3 Ps that if you define, you would be able to start your own organization and create an impact in the world. Now, what are these 3 Ps? So the first P talks about the problem that you want to solve in society. Now, I've seen people go on either end of the spectrum. They either start solving a problem that doesn't exist, or they go and start solving a cake problem like ending global hunger as a single organization. I'm not saying don't dream big, but start small. So you need to be in the middle. Have a pastry problem, strike a perfect balance. Start with something small. Ending global hunger, maybe in the long term. Right now, no. Setting up a food stall in a slum in Delhi, yes, that's a good way to start. Do you want to give clean water access or clean sanitation to every single person on earth? Too big of a challenge for you to start with. But should you start by making a few toilets in a rural district in Bihar? Yes. So choose your problems really carefully and see at what scale you can work with. Now the second step, the second P to define, is the people. Who are the people that you're trying to help? What's your motivation? Who are the people you're trying to help? You need to know that because that is what will help you go and define the third P, which we'll talk about later. The people. Do you want to help the differently abled community right now? Yeah. What part of it? Way too many societies. Choose the one you want to help. As long as you're specific, you'll create an impact. Do you want to help the underprivileged section of the world? Underprivileged people? Yeah. But which ones? What do they do? Where are they from? How do they live? What's their culture? Try to understand the people you're working with, and as long as you do, you'll get excellent ideas to create an impact in society with that. Now talking about the third P, the plan, very essential. You might know the entire problem, you might know all the people associated with it, but as long as you don't have a plan, you'll never be able to create an impact. Maybe even if you do, it will never be as big as what it could have been if you had just planned ahead. What a plan does is focuses all your energy to a single point so that you don't wander around. And at the same time, you're able to list down all the problems you'll face in the future so that when they approach you, you're ready for them. But this is a lot of big talk, isn't it? The problem, the people, the plan, we have so many ideas going on, but then a simple question comes that, yeah, this kid is talking on stage, giving this TED talk, and he's talking about it, but does it really work on the ground? Like, is it practical? Because I'm talking about teenagers doing this. Anyone can. But I'm saying this is so simple that even a teenager can pull it off. So is it something that actually works in the real world? Well, for the past 5 years, this is the method I've been following and trying to create small impacts in bigger problems of the world. You see, the pastry problems. So the idea here essentially comes that the first thing I started was probably in the migrant worker crisis of 2020. I think all of us remember that. The pandemic had just started. There was the first lockdown, and a lot of daily wage workers, thousands of them, lost their livelihood. Now their motive was to go back to their home, their villages, barefoot for 1,000 and 2,000 kilometers. I remember looking at this at a newspaper and thinking that, you know, this is the problem I want to solve. Again, I wanted to get to those people and get the resources, so I collected a few cardboard boxes and went into my local community, asked for books, sanitizers, masks, clothes, ration, anything I could gather, just to get to the borders. I remember the first time I was there was an ocean full of people. Till the horizon, I could just see people that needed those resources, and trust me when I say that I did not have ample resources for everyone. The need was too big for me to offer. But I did know that every good thing I could offer was needed there. The best thing is when I distributed these clothes and footwear, I got a lot of things in return. I got smiles from young children when they got their toys and books and food and snacks. And with the adults, I got blessings, and I think that really changed me when they got their clothes and footwear. And that gave me the motivation to come again 3 days later, this time with a few other friends from school and a few more resources. The motive was just to help 10 people that day, and again and again and again. And then the number of people in our organization started increasing exponentially, so did the number of resources. So on our 10th drive, our team of 40 students carrying our clothes and resources in a small wagon named ourselves Relief Wagon. It's been 2 years now since Relief Wagon started, and we've grown quite a lot because there are people, there are teenagers around the world with that same fire of rebellion that wanted to be a part of this. We're working in more than 22 states of India right now and 8 countries around the globe, providing the same resources to people around the world. And our goal has been the same thing since the very beginning. It wasn't the idea to create the next cake, but it was just to go for a pastry problem and try to impact it as much as I can. At the beginning, the goal was to help 10 people. That's the same thing right now. But now it's helping 10 people in every city by every member every single day. And that is Relief Wagon. The second problem I had, the second problem I worked towards was a very different field. You see, in India, 42,480 farmers committed suicide in just 2019. That's a big number. That was a problem I wanted to solve. And I introspected and I thought that, and not just introspected, I researched into this and I realized that, you know, there are many things that could have happened to save these farmers. There are technologies in the West like engineering and sustainability that could be used. There are multiple policies we have right now in our country that could be used in order to help these farmers. But it is the lack of awareness. This is the problem I wanted to solve. So, with the help of the government, we started Project Panchayat. Now, the thing is that Project Panchayat is essentially an idea where we get these ideas across to the people, to the farmers. So we've talked a lot about the organizations and we've talked a lot about what we're doing, but the idea is that oftentimes we know what the problem in society is. We know what the people are that we're trying to help. And we may even have a plan ready to help that. We may even have a plan ready to create that impact. But oftentimes we still don't go ahead with it. We stop. Why is that? Well, the idea is we care too much. We feel that we're being watched all the time. Okay, if I start that YouTube channel, what will my friends say? What will my family say? What will my peers say? If I write that book, what if my boss doesn't like it? What if my colleagues don't like it? All of us go through that, don't we? That constant feeling of being watched. This is what the psychologists call the spotlight effect. You feel you're directly under the spotlight at all times. You're being watched constantly, but that's not true. Because the spotlight is on everyone at all times. You are under your own spotlight. And you are essentially the main character in your story, and everything around you is dark. Everything and everyone. Everyone is a side character. You see, everyone is too busy making their own story a wonderful one to care about what you're doing. So start that patent, start writing that patent, start that book, register that idea. Start with your work, create an impact, because the sooner you realize you're the only person noticing yourself under that spotlight, the better of an impact you'll be able to create in society. You see, because today I'm giving this TED talk in front of all of you, so the spotlight's on me. But if you go back home right now, if you heard what I said, if you apply that and come up with your own project or an idea or something you want to do to change the world, and if you're able to succeed in that, or even if you're able to create a small impact on that, then I wouldn't be in the spotlight anymore. And the spotlight would be on you. I would just become a side character in your story that provoked that one idea. Now here's the thought, think about this. I was able to do all of this with the help of hundreds of passionate students around the world. All of my initiatives are absolutely 100% led by students and worked by students. But if I am just one of the 1.2 billion teenagers on planet Earth today, imagine what kind of impact we'll be able to make. And 1.2 billion is just the teenagers. Imagine all the other people from all age categories that are trying to create an impact in society. Because even if we take the smallest slices of cake, even if we have the thinnest slices of pastries that we have, if all of us join our forces today, then no matter what the scale of the next global crisis is, no matter how big it is, or no matter how big or small that global crisis is, it will all seem like a piece of cake.